Alright, folks, welcome back to Sports with the Boys. I'm Anthony Alford, and it's just me now, so it's kind of the old school um, Alf Dog show. It's great to be here, here at the dorms. Now, since I had a stretch there, but since we only have a little bit of time, again, I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the show. I want to talk about couple of issues, and they're both in the NFL. First off, congratulations to the San Francisco Giants for winning the World Series. That's their first World Series victory for that franchise since 1954. And the first for the Giants franchise in San Francisco. They moved to San Francisco in 1958. Uh, Texas Rangers, congratulations to them too. First appearance in the World Series. So, very impressive stuff. I want to talk about Randy Moss. And I want to also talk about Donovan McNabb. But we'll get to McNabb a little bit later. Randy Moss, as you know, has been claimed off waivers by the Tennessee Titans. That's the Tennessee Titans are 5-3. They claimed him off waivers. Why do you possibly believe that Randy Moss only spent 1 month with the Vikings? Only a month with the Vikings. Is there actual reason to that? You know, after his game against the Patriots, a team that obviously he loves and adores so much, it showed because he had his press conference, and if you heard him, it was quite hilarious. Oh, I freaking love I miss those guys, man. I love Bill Belichick, and he's still great. Tom Brady's the best. Tom Brady's the best. Oh, but then he refers to his own coach, well, at the time, with the Vikings, Brad Childress. Oh, and by the way, we should have got that. I would like to have that 3 at the end, referring to the first half when the Vikings went for it on fourth down. They was at their own 1 yard line, and they couldn't convert, and the game was tied at 7 instead of kicking a field goal. And honestly, I agree with the decision that was made to go for it. You drove down that far, and just to get to the 1, I mean, it's crazy. And kick a field goal. And at that point, even if you don't convert, you kind of don't have anything to lose. But I wish we'd have got that 3 at the end. Okay. Okay, Moss. Randy Moss is a perfect illustration of what we call a diva player in football. A player who has all the talents in the world. Here's the thing. I know he's getting double covered. I know. I know he's getting double covered by defenses that is checking him. But at the same time, he's only getting double covered when he's fully running his routes. Defensive coordinators and defensive players have figured out Randy Moss. They figured out, and he's not the only receiver that does this, but he's a prime example. They figure out when exactly he's going to get involved in a play and when he doesn't. Because when he is involved in a play, he runs the route full speed. Down the field, or whatever route he has to go, he runs at full speed. When the ball's not going to him, he just jogs or he strides and not running full speed. So there's no need for the safety to check Moss over the top. And there was a lot of instances where Moss was simply not trying. Something happened with Moss on his way out of the Patriots that kind of trail back to the times when he was with the Oakland Raiders. It's one of those things where it's one of those things where your mentality of me against the world takes over instead of the team against the world type thing. I don't. He's a great teammate sometimes. I don't understand how you can sometimes be a great teammate. How sometimes you can make plays. By which, with the Vikings doing his whole time, that was not happening at all. That was not happening at all. A guy like Randy Moss, I'll put other guys in this category, like a T.O. and somebody else, and other diva players. When they sign on with a new team, usually you're on your best behavior. If you're on a team that's the best, that has a chance of winning championships, you're on your best behavior. I mean, look at Randy Moss when he went to the Patriots in 2007. Highlight reels from that offense every single week. But instead, his first year he just came from Oakland, he was on his best behavior. Plus, Bill Belichick's there. A guy with credibility. Brad Childress at Minnesota has absolutely no credibility whatsoever. He picked up, and we talked about this on our show back in August, he picked up Brett Favre from the airport. He picked him up. So, what you get with him is, whatever. I think, so how will Randy Moss do with the Tennessee Titans? I think, unlike Brad Childress, with Randy Moss, you have a guy like him, his coach has to have credibility. He has to have a proven track record and the proven assurance that he knows what he's doing. And Jeff Fisher, who is the longest tenured active coach, head coach in the NFL, certainly has that resume. Certainly does. And part two of that is you have to be with a team that could be in the making to make the playoffs and do some damage in the postseason. The Tennessee Titans can possibly do that. They can possibly do that, and they set themselves off. If Randy Moss reaches to his full potential, they set themselves up, the Tennessee Titans, as a poignant, dangerous, dynamic offense with Chris Johnson running the football and then Randy Moss over the top. You give options to Vince Young, and if he's not playing, Kerry Collins. You give them options to go. But isn't this what we said about the Minnesota Vikings a month ago? How by adding Randy Moss, Brett Favre finally has a target to throw the football down to. Well, part of that is we finally see, first off, what happens when your starting quarterback doesn't go to training camp. Chemistry's off with the rest of your receivers. And then Randy Moss running his routes like he's walking in a park or something. It's embarrassing. And I don't know how Randy Moss, what exactly his thinking is. But I think this year, he's basically given one more chance. And luckily, since he was put on waivers, he could have been picked up by a bad team like Buffalo or Carolina. But instead he got picked up by a legit playoff team in Tennessee who could actually be the difference between just advancing to the playoffs and actually overtaking the top AFC teams. With that understanding, let's hope that Randy Moss will be able to come through with that. When we come back, I want to talk about Donovan McNabb and why. What was going on in Washington with the decision to pull Donovan McNabb in the last 2 minutes. And I'll tell you as well what T.O. said at the end of the game as well. More sports with the boys when we come back.